Hey everyone, welcome to the 245th episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
And we have a busy show for you today. We're going to be talking about some news from AWS reInvent. Plus, Resideo, the company behind the Honeywell home brand, has big news about putting a smart hub in your thermostat. Wise has a new lock. We've got some news updates, including some updates about Ring, a downed diabetes monitoring system, an FBI security alert, and, oh my gosh, what is this? Kevin is about to do the unthinkable.
Yep.
So, all of this, plus our guest this week is Felicity Mormon. She is CEO of Stratus IoT, and we're going to be talking about upcoming trends in smart apartments, plus what you as a renter should be asking your landlord to protect your privacy and security. All of this and more await you. But first, a word from our sponsor. This week, we're introducing a new sponsor, Seerent. Building a great connected product is tough. Although it may work well with your lab or field trial, once it's in the wild west of real customer environments, it gets more complicated. To build a product that works well in the real world, you should check out Seerent. Their solutions make it easier to get products connected and keep those products connected. So go to Seerent.com to learn more about their solutions. That's Seerent, Cirrent.com. Alrighty, Kevin, let's kick it off. This week is Amazon's big cloud show called reInvent, and there's mostly a lot of news for the AWS world, so new instances using ARM computers, yay! Lots of machine learning stuff. There's only a few things that we really care about on the IoT side. We actually covered last week a lot of the IoT-related news. First up is AWS Wavelength. This is a new service on Amazon Web Services that's going to allow developers to build applications that have millisecond latency to mobile devices. So Wavelength is compressing everything, all the services you know and love in the AWS cloud, and they're actually going to move them to carrier networks at the RAN. That's the radio access network. So this is what cellular operators call their edge. So when you hear like AT&T or Verizon talk about the edge, they're talking about the tiny data centers that are usually at the base of cell towers. I don't know how familiar people are going to be with this, but basically at the bottom of every cell tower, there's a tiny little closet. Sometimes it's bigger than just tiny. And there's lots of servers and gear that are managing billing, operations, the software-defined networking associated with that. So Amazon is now moving into those areas. And their first partner on this is going to be Verizon, Vodafone, KDDI, and SK Telecom. And so from this, what you're going to be able to do is any 5G application, and I'm not 100% sure if it's only going to be 5G, it might be LTE applications. The idea is you're going to have your services at the edge so you don't have to call back to the cloud. So it's going to be fast. Think for things like VR, things like Pokemon Go or I can't think of the Harry Potter game right now. What's it called? Kevin, do you know what I'm talking about? It's the mobile Pokemon Go style thing for Harry Potter by Niantic.
Oh, okay.
I just can't think of what it is. But the idea is like if you have 5 people in your family and you're all playing together, you want that super fast latency for that game. And then there'll be industrial applications as well.
Right. So my guess is that this probably won't be available on cell towers that currently use 4G LTE because they're promising with Wavelength single-digit millisecond latencies.
That's really fast, you guys.
It's ridiculously fast. I kind of wish I had that for my Google Stadia online gaming, but I don't. It's probably about 22 milliseconds for me. But yes, so I guess the idea here is they're going to be able to spin up applications kind of on demand.
Yeah, this is prime container usage, you guys. So whenever anybody's talking about like Docker or Kubernetes containers, think about this application. What happens is you're basically going to spin up the application that you need right there and run it and then shut it down because these are not going to be permanent instances at the edge. There's just not enough space.
So I'm just thinking use case wise, because this kind of came out of the blue and I hadn't thought about it before, but you've explained it in a way that makes sense to me. So what does it mean? Who can use it? I'm curious if you agree with this list. I'm thinking any industrial IoT things that are maybe outside the range of a warehouse Wi-Fi, etc. Smart cars.
Yes and no. So I think the warehouse example, you're right. That is a probable use case, but what's more likely, because I live this world, we actually last week saw Siemens and Qualcomm create an in-factory 5G network. What I think is going to happen for factories, because they're so security conscious and latency sensitive, they're going to have their own in-house spectrum and 5G networks. Now, that doesn't mean AWS, they can't put wavelength and bring those AWS services inside their factory network, but it won't be like an operator network necessarily.
Gotcha.
Yes, on cars. Amazon also said that the NFL is testing wavelength on Verizon 5G for in-stadium enhancements for fans. So you could see something like that because Verizon has distributed access DACs. I'm trying to remember what the acronym is for, but they have things in stadiums. So they might have their equipment in the stadium run this and allow fans like weird VR, cool touchdown, everybody's shirt lights up kind of experiences.
Or you could just order that $20 beer and hot dog in 5 milliseconds.
There you go. Also important. I think it'd be way cooler if your shirt lit up when the touchdown
I would agree.
But whatever they use it for. So that is the AWS side. I will say, just to tie this all together, AT&T last week or 2 weeks ago announced a deal with Microsoft Azure that is going to put Azure on AT&T's edge network. I think eventually we'll see Verizon work with Azure as well, and we'll see AWS and AT&T tie up. But for now, that's kind of a trend happening. So keep an eye on that. We'll definitely do that here.
I give those two companies credit for actually giving it a name that makes sense. Their effort is called Network Edge Compute, which tells you everything you need to know, as opposed to wavelength.
Yeah, I think wavelength's a little more fun because Network Edge Compute, I mean, I feel like I get 8 press releases a day that have some variation of Network Edge Compute.
Yeah, they could have called it 5G Network Edge Compute. I'll give you that, but still, at least it makes sense.
5G Edge Network Computing 5G
How many more
Edge.
buzzwords can we get in bingo?
So anyway, now you know what that's all about. It's very exciting. And Kevin, you have some exciting news because we've got AWS news that might relate to robots.
Well, I'm taking a leap here. I will say that in advance. I tuned in and caught some of the AWS news, at least the parts that interested me, and the Deep Racer League and the cars that they've been selling, although they've been hard to get for some reason. The people waited a long time to get these autonomous cars. And if you're not familiar with the Deep Racer, what it is, Amazon will sell you for $400 a 1/18th scale autonomous car. And basically you can train it to go around a track. And they, this week, in fact, had people race around the track that they set up at the Quad, and the finals will be at MGM Grand late this week. Once you train it, you put the car down and it goes and you get timed. And if your car was trained to run fast enough, you could win something. I don't even know what the prizes are, but I think it's really neat from a machine learning standpoint. So this week, they extended the Deep Racer car to a new product called the Deep Racer Evo. And what they're doing is, when it becomes available in 2020, you can sign up if you're interested. It has LiDAR and stereo camera sensors as opposed to just the single camera of the original Deep Racer. And I'm wondering, this is all for head-to-head racing and so on and whatnot, but could AWS and Amazon extend this to a mobile Madam A in the home that's autonomous, has obstacle collision avoidance, and so on? I mean, that's where I see this potentially leading to. And maybe it's a stretch, but I'm super excited about this. I almost ordered one of these cars this week.
But you didn't, so you don't have one yet.
I do not.
Okay, but perhaps soon. We shall see. Okay.
We shall see.
I think that's about it for Amazon news. What do you think?
From an IoT perspective, I would agree.
Okay, so Let's move on to other big news. This week, Resideo, which is now in charge of the Honeywell home brands, has made a couple of announcements. First up, on Monday, they said their CEO, Mike Nefkins, would be leaving, and they're working on finding a replacement. He's leaving for family health reasons, so hearts go out to him.
Absolutely.
But that's one part of the news. The other part that's probably more exciting for everybody who is into the smart home is they announced two big things. One is the M5 thermostat concept, and the other is a unified app. So Honeywell has provided 4 different apps historically. The thermostat, a security app, something for water, and I can't remember the other one. They're combining everything into one app that's trying to monitor what they think of as the essential systems of your home. And that is water, electricity, air quality, and security. And the idea is this M5 thermostat concept is going to be a way to bring all that in together, and it'll have the brain power. It's a thermostat with the brain power and a display that will also show you things like, oh, hey, there's been a window broken into in your home, or hey, your water heater is breaking down. So all of that stuff now comes through this thermostat. It's kind of like a smart hub for your home from Resideo. Now, for everyone who's excited about this, it is like, I want to go buy me one of those. You can't. You have to go through the dealer network. And this is what Resideo's play is here, is that they want to take, you know how a lot of us probably pay for someone to manage our lawn. So you may not mow your lawn yourself. You just pay a lawn crew to come every week. Mm-hmm. Their idea is you pay this person to manage these, again, essential systems in your home. And so you'll get like pre-warned if your water heater is about to go out or if your air conditioner is about to break. And it'll just become part of your life that you no longer have to experience these things because they'll know about it in advance and come help you. That's the idea. Yeah, so it's going to be something that you'll pay for the hardware. You'll also have a subscription fee. I think it's a really interesting model. It gets more interesting now that the smart home is kind of, I don't want to say failed in a way, but it is kind of failing in a lot of ways for people. Will this be what brings it to the mainstream? They've bought like Buoy, which was a home water monitoring system, and they're going to actually announce a new product related to that as well. If you have Honeywell sensors, it'll talk to you about your air quality and HVAC. So I don't know, Kevin, what do you think?
They're basically putting out creating a platform, and that's what's proving to be the more successful products, I think.
Yes, more successful or just more essential. People are willing to pay for home security. People seem to be willing to pay for, air quality, and they're a thermostat company originally, so that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we'll see. I am really intrigued by this. I don't know if it will work, but it hasn't been really tried before. So that's why I'm like, hey, let's see if this sticks to the wall. All right. Other things that are being thrown at the wall. Wise, which, good Lord. It's getting to the point, like, what don't they make? They have announced and shown off their Wise lock. We talked about this a few episodes ago when we ran down like the scale and the doorbell and all the other stuff they're planning to launch. But they did tell us that the lock would be out before 2019, and it is out. But it's kind of an incomplete thing.
There's a lot I like about it, and there's a few things I don't like about it. I don't have it yet. I'm just talking about the news of the lock. It literally became available this week for early adopters. They have a limited supply. You're probably not going to get it in time for Christmas. It's $89.99. That's good. It fits over your existing deadbolt. That's even better. However, I'm a little confused by the connectivity in that it communicates over Bluetooth and Zigbee over to Wi-Fi, which is fine, but why not use the same proprietary radio frequency and protocol that they use for their other recent smart home products? I don't understand that. I'm not saying it's a problem. I just don't understand it. Additionally, there's an optional, not available yet, February 2020, it will be coming, keypad that will go on the outside of your door. So until then, if you get this, you have to use your existing key or the Wise app, I presume, to unlock your door when you get home. I don't know the price of the keypad, and I think it shouldn't even launch without the keypad. That's just me, though.
So I'm almost with you. Now, remember August, which this is probably closest to. The August lock, the original one, didn't have a keypad, and it launched with auto unlock, which was Bluetooth based. And this also has an auto unlock. So this can unlock when you get near the door without doing a keypad.
If your phone has a charge, yes.
Yes. Now, if you recall, August actually put out a keypad later, and I think most people want a keypad with their lock.
Yep.
That's just me. I actually prefer a keypad over a connected lock, believe it or not. There's only a few times when I'm like, oh, I wish my lock were connected, but every day I use the keypad. So
you have a non-connected keypad lock in your current
I do, in my rental, yes, and I love it.
Interesting. Okay, so I have a connected and keypad lock.
Right.
That's awesome for me. I love it.
I used to have that. But again, I use the keypad way more often than the connectivity. So if I had to choose, I'd go keypad. But I will say, so I don't know why Wise isn't using the sub-gigahertz chips that it uses its proprietary frequency for the Wise Sense system. Mm-hmm. My hunch would be that it can't be a battery issue. It may be a components issue. Like you would probably, because that's a separate radio, maybe they don't make that plus Zigbee or plus Bluetooth. Maybe it's too hard to fit all of that in, but it's very easy to buy a Zigbee plus Bluetooth board.
Totally possible. I mean, I'm not saying it's a problem. I'm saying I just didn't understand it.
It is weird.
They say on their forums that they partnered with Lock-In, all one word, a subsidiary of one of the largest smart lock manufacturers. Maybe it was part of the deal with Lock-In to use whatever Lock-In wanted to use. I have no idea.
They do tend to buy or license their hardware. Their camera is the same camera that Xiaomi uses, like the same physical hardware. So that is a very distinct possibility. But
right.
If you're all in on the Wise ecosystem, you don't mind the lack of a keypad, you're not buying it for Christmas, you have $90 to spend, go for it.
And you can wait till early 2020 for voice support with either Madam A or Google, because that's not coming on day one either.
Yeah. So maybe you just want to buy this next year.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to the news. Starting with, it's Ring again.
Speaking of doorbells.
Kevin, what do we have?
Oh, man. It just gets worse and worse every couple weeks. We find out something new about this whole Amazon-owned Ring, what I would call debacle from a PR standpoint. Cena is reporting this week that Ring at one point offered a map. No longer do they do so, just so everybody's clear. A map that allowed police to zoom in to see the specific location of Ring customers. I would say Ring installations, but okay, Ring customers is also accurate. Yeah, this is just going from bad to worse for Amazon, in my opinion.
Well, I do think this was created with the best of intentions. I think it was also created absent an understanding of how the real world can work. And I will say that, the world has changed remarkably since Ring launched. The administration here is different. We have changed a lot. We've had a lot more conversations about how we want to do policing in this country. And I think we're still coming to an agreement around that. So I will say, I do believe this launched with, hey, let's truly make neighborhoods safer. And I talked to Jamie Siminoff, the CEO of Ring, years ago when they were launching the Neighbors feature about issues of racial profiling. And he was thinking about it even then. So
let me pose this. Do you think this is more of a Ring initiative or an Amazon initiative?
I think there's two things. I think the purchase by Amazon has brought a lot more scrutiny. And I think in some areas, Ring possibly didn't think through their sales strategy. And I don't know if Amazon is pushing the police sales strategy. If so, then it's an Amazon thing. But I think there's a confluence of things. Like I said, we've changed how we think about what police can do. I think the marketing by police departments is very problematic in this case. Mm-hmm. So yes, those are the things I think about this. Okay, so in other news that's not awesome, Dexcom, which makes the G6 continuous glucose monitor, they had an outage. And the interesting thing about this device, one, Kevin built something very similar in his computer science class, but this is a connected medical device. And what it does is it monitors someone's glucose. And when it gets too low, it alerts you by sending a notification to your smartphone. Parents love this for their kids, apparently, and that makes a ton of sense because, you know, your kid may not be able to communicate and you don't want to prick them all the time with the needle. So the challenge here is these guys, the makers, Dexcom, they suffered an outage on last Friday. And when they had their outage, the product didn't send alerts to people's phones. This to me feels, I mean, outages are almost inevitable in a cloud world. I don't think, I mean, they're not great. You really want somebody with, you know, a service like this, you would like it to be at least 4 nines, so 99.99% effective. We've achieved that in a lot of clouds. What is astonishing to me is they didn't actually send a notification when the device went down, which is beginner level stuff. I remember testing a product like in 2014. It was a security product. And when the system went down, like the internet failed or maybe just something went wrong, it didn't actually alert you, which I was like, that seems like something I should have. This should alert me when the system goes down since it's a security product.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I'm curious if Dexcom hosts those servers themselves or they contract out to Azure, AWS, Google, whatever, because the chief technology officer said the outage occurred because the company's servers unexpectedly became overloaded. So
yeah, that could be a poorly configured, you know, AWS system. It could be their own.
It could be their. See, as I read that, I would immediately think, well, then you're running your own servers is what you're kind of alluding to, in which case, I don't know what kind of redundancy you have. You're not going to have the redundancy of a cloud provider. And this isn't even the first time this happened, although the last outage, which was December 31st of last year with Dexcom, they fixed that one in a day. I don't know how they communicated it. But if you're running your own servers and you've had these outages, people depend on this for their life. You know, and I say that because, as you alluded to, we built a system similar to this with a Medtronic glucose monitor. It wasn't continuous. We made it continuous with a Raspberry Pi and cloud components and RF components and whatnot, because one of my teammates has diabetes in the class. So this can be done locally, but if you're going to do it on servers, do it in the cloud, I'd say.
Do it in a qualified cloud.
Well, yes, yeah. Don't go to Joe's server farm.
Joe's Cloud Shack. So yes, and I would say as companies start to build connected products, which everyone is doing nowadays, these are lessons that, you know, you may not realize, but start thinking about that. Talk to some IT people about best practices here.
And you know what's interesting? These are FDA-approved medical devices. Is there no FDA
The FDA
requirement?
is working on this. So the FDA does have requirements. I have read all of the FDA notices and the proposals about regulating these devices. Notifying someone of an outage is actually not on any of the things.
Okay, there's the problem.
But maybe they should add it. So
I would say so.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of obvious, the FBI wants you to know that your smart TV may be spying on you. I don't have a lot more to say about this. The FBI does do these security alerts for consumers every now and then, and they just want you to know that smart TVs, they have mics and they have cameras nowadays, and they're eminently hackable. Some of them have been hacked already. And they recommend that if you don't want this, you know, if you buy this smart connected TV, you know, stick a piece of tape over the camera.
If you're concerned, yes. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be concerned. You probably should be concerned. But welcome to 2015, FBI. I don't think you can even buy a TV that's not a smart TV.
Oh, this is a source of much chagrin for my mother. So yes.
Okay, I'll stop right there. I don't want to upset your mom.
There you go. Okay. Oh, speaking of upset, we're on fuego for these segues.
Fire with the segues.
Kevin, I believe you are a little upset and it's prompting a change in your habits.
It is. I am sad to say this, but this is, I'm saying it here first so you all know, you're the first to know, that after, I don't know, at least 2, if not 3 years of using Wink Hubs, I'm unplugging the Wink Hub. That's it. I just am concerned about the viability of the company. We've talked about the issues they've had with not paying people for 6-7 weeks. We talked about that, I don't know, last month, 2 months ago. Then we had the outage where Wink wasn't talking to Google Home. That was fixed in about 5 days last month. And then we painted our hallway this week. What does that have to do with anything? Well, that's where the Wink Hub was. And we unplugged the Wink Hub while we painted the hallway. And then we plugged it back in. And it usually just reconnects to the Wi-Fi network. But it's not. It's just blinking an orange warning light. I've tried at least 5 times to reconnect the Wink Hub. And I know that it's really meant to be connected over Ethernet. And I could connect over Ethernet and I could factory reset it and rebuild all my automations. But I don't feel like I should because the product just hasn't had any momentum for the past, I'd say, 18 months. So I think I'm going to take that $10 SmartThings Link USB stick that adds radios to my NVIDIA Shield Android TV and just go with SmartThings for now, just for now, and see what happens with Google with local control and maybe more integrations and so on. I mean, you know, there's tons of, and our listeners know, there's tons of automation options or hub options out there. We've talked about them, the OpenHab, Habitat, Home Assistant. What am I missing?
Homebridge.
Homebridge.
Insteon.
Even HomeKit, right? But I have a rule. Well, a rule has been enforced on me is probably the better thing. The system has to work so well that my wife can manage the system and use the system. And although all of those hubs that we just talked about and platforms we talked about are great systems, I don't think any of them really are mainstream usable.
They're not Barb approved.
They're not Barb approved, no. She doesn't even know this yet. But just before the podcast, she said something as I was walking into my office, like, that thing's still blinking. I said, don't worry about it. It's going away. She's like, oh? I'm like, don't worry. I'll give you something simple, something you can use. So she doesn't know it yet. We're probably going to go to SmartThings for now. Or I may just replace a lot of my bulbs, my Zigbee bulbs, with inexpensive Wi-Fi bulbs from Wise or...
No, because then she's going to be turning off the lights at the switch and you're going to break.
She doesn't use the switches.
Oh, okay.
No. We have Google Home displays and smart speakers everywhere in this house. So
she
she's
talks
okay
to
with
them
it. And
now?
I set them on... She occasionally will. She's okay with it if she has to, but most of them are on timers. And that's my one hang up with Google. I don't think the routines support nonverbal routines, meaning I can't just have things go on at certain times. So I think I'm going to transition to SmartThings for now and then see what happens. But the Wink, it's going away. And I'm sad to say that because I love the product. It's worked so well for us. But lately it hasn't. And again, why reinvest the time to reset it all up?
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm so glad that you're talking about this because this ties directly into this week's IoT Podcast Hotline question. This week, the IoT Podcast Hotline is sponsored by Affero. With the 5th largest IoT patent portfolio in the world, Affero provides a proven IoT platform that doesn't risk your brand. Affero customers have experienced as much as an 80% reduction in time to market and 10x higher activation rates. Learn more at affero.io. All right, this is the beginning of the month, which means we have a winner from last month. Yay!
Who is it?
Last month's winner is Bryant. So, Bryant, I have sent you a text, and I hope you enjoy your Schlage lock that you will be getting. Yay! This month's winner will win some Hue light bulbs, but we're going to have to get with you when we announce the winner to find out if you want Bluetooth, hub-based, or what. So, keep that in mind, and if you are interested, or if you just have a question and would like to be entered to win, give us a call at 512-623-7424, and you will be entered to win. We will run this all month through the end of the month at midnight on the 31st. That's midnight Eastern Time. You must be
New Year's Eve.
Yes, you must be in the US or Canada to win. Okay. This week's question is all about the Wink Hub, or all about taking down a hub. So let's hear it.
Hi, Stacey and Kevin. This is Brian from Austin, Texas. This is my first question. I'm sadly getting ready to switch from Wink to SmartThings. Do you have any advice on how to prepare for the switch? For example, do I need to remove all my devices from the Wink before I add them to SmartThings, or can I run them in parallel? I'm sure Kevin has thought all of this through by now. Love the podcast, by the way. Bye.
Oh, hi, Brian. And I would not have pegged that as an Austin accent, but my old hometown. Yeah. All right. We have good news for you. Kevin's going to tell you exactly what he did, and I'll chime in with some additional advice when he's done.
This is something we've talked about before. It's not specific to Wink, but it certainly applies here, Brian. First thing you want to do is remove all of the devices from your Wink hub. You don't want to just unplug the Wink hub and put in a new hub. Get your personal information and your configurations off the Wink hub. Before you do that, however, I would recommend creating a spreadsheet of all the devices that you have, any automations or rules that you have, so that way you're not creating everything from scratch on SmartThings from memory. Because the bad news is, none of these hubs have really a backup system to migrate from one brand to another. So you're going to have to set everything up again. I'm sorry about that. I feel your pain. As I just said, I'm going through the same thing. But at least you've got a record of what you need to reconfigure. So definitely pull everything off the Wink hub appropriately. Maybe create a spreadsheet.
That means things like formally remove and unpair your Z-Wave devices.
Yes, absolutely. Z-Wave especially. Yes.
Because they will stay paired to that device and then they won't pair to your new device otherwise.
Correct. And before the show, Stacey, you mentioned another possible idea on how to save your system configuration.
Oh, I talked about using screenshots instead of a spreadsheet. If you have just a few apps, use screenshots to help you.
Makes sense.
I would also recommend, as part of the big teardown, since you're switching over, go through your voice assistants, so Google or Madame A or both, and unlink all the skills. And I know this sounds like a pain, but what it's going to do is it's going to give you a clean discovery process for Madame A or Google devices. Because otherwise what happens if your Wink stuff stays linked, for example, in your Amazon account, it will actually retain all of those devices as things on your network, even though it's not still on your network, because they're still in the cloud. And
it could even double up your devices.
It will double up your devices.
Yeah, and you just don't want that. So I know you're looking for an easy way to just kind of migrate. It's unfortunate that this industry hasn't figured out an open data sharing migration path, but it hasn't. So you and I are in the same boat. We're going to have to manually unlink, remove all the devices, and set them up properly again on a new hub.
Make yourself a drink, get ready to run up and down your stairs. You're going to have fun. All right. Well, that concludes this portion of the podcast. Please stay tuned for our guest, Felicity Mormon. She is the CEO of Stratus. We're going to be talking about what's coming in smart apartments and how you, as a renter, can protect your data privacy. Yay! This week, we don't have a message from our sponsor, so I just want to thank everyone who is listening. That's right. Thank you guys. And please, if you are interested in the Internet of Things and you haven't already, sign up for my newsletter at www.stacyoniot.com. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Felicity Mormon, who is the CEO and co-founder of Stratus IoT. Hi, Felicity. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing awesome. Thanks, Stacey. It's always great to talk to you.
I agree 100%. And we are talking about something super important today, which is IoT in apartments. And then we're going to kind of segue a little bit into smart buildings. But this is a huge topic right now. For a while, I know that we have talked for years, and it was about, let's put some smart lighting in, maybe as an amenity, like the granite countertops of apartment living. And now things seem to be changing. So walk me through what you've seen and what's changed.
Yeah, so there's been a tremendous shift in the marketplace, both from an education perspective. So the entirety of the market in multifamily and student housing has come to understand the actual opportunities available with smart. So that's hugely exciting. But as you know, consumer confusion creates consumer inaction. So we're having this moment where There are so many enablers of smart technologies in multifamily and student housing right now that we have a bit of a pause to try to differentiate one platform from another. And I think the big differentiating piece from a demand perspective is weirdly, and I wouldn't have anticipated this, we started Stratus specifically as an energy management platform for collaborative control between residents and the owners and operators of these buildings. But the demand has centered around a sidewalk to sofa access platform. That's the driver with the new demand economy and concierge services like Hello Alfred, your dog walker, dry cleaner, house cleaner, guests, visitors, short-term rentals, and flex housing. It's really made that credential, and hopefully a mobile credential, from that gate that you come into all the way to the unit itself as the driver for the platform. And that was a surprise to me. I really thought we would have hit a return on investment with Energy First.
Wow. So instead of conservation, we're like, hey, no, we need more consumption. That fits.
It might be different consumption. You know, instead of me going to the grocery store, my groceries are coming to me. Instead of me walking my dog in the middle of the day and maybe missing some work, the dog walker is coming to me. So it is certainly enabling service providers. It also enables different types of travel, and it gives the resident a new perspective. Do I stay here at my home in, say, Denver? And when I go on vacation, do I stay at another property that's owned by the company that I'm renting from? That's new to this industry, kind of the hospitalization of multifamily, if you will.
That's crazy. I hadn't thought about that. So you guys recently, I shouldn't say recently, but Greystar, which is one of the largest multifamily companies out there, they did a deal where they are bringing in like Lutron lighting, Nest gear, and they're running all that through your platform. So I just love to talk to you about working with them. What have you seen in their evolution, plus your evolution? I know we've talked about broadly.
Yep.
What's happening there?
Yeah, these providers of multifamily and student housing, senior housing even, as a part of the Greystar portfolio, they are looking at technology from a very visionary perspective. Greystar in particular is a visionary in this space. It's one of those moments where large firms and small firms alike are going to have to make decisions that they will either disrupt or be disrupted. And sometimes that disruption is to the self. The actual company doing the disruption is self-disruption. And they look at technology as an opportunity to reinvent the multifamily space, very much like hospitality. And so enabling travel, enabling the sharing economy, really enabling the demand in concierge services. This is one of those moments where they have an opportunity to lead far faster because of the volume. I think they're 4 times larger than anybody else. And globally, their global perspective and their global acquisitions are tremendous. So they are in the catbird seat for implementing these technologies, but also, and I think this is probably the biggest benefit that Stratus has in working with visionaries like Greystar, that feedback and specification of what's next means we don't make anything up. We never make something that's not already in demand. And that's priceless. It's from a return on investment perspective for both us and our clients.
Ooh, so what is in demand? What should we be looking at for trends in the multifamily space?
So number 1, absolutely that electronic access. And again, sidewalk to sofa. Number 2 is the sexy thermostat. And the lighting, when we partnered with Lutron, that's a proprietary radio frequency. That's not available to just anyone. And it was quite the honor to be included in that pilot because there's a level of trust that happens when your technology is exceptionally secure and those in the industry behind you are asking for you to partner with somebody with the reputation of Lutron. And it's the same for Google and Nest. When Nest came back into the fold of Google, that was disruptive, but the motivation behind it was true, and it was around security. And that has to be respected. In today's technology space, a focus on security or sometimes a refocus is necessary to move forward again and be trustworthy. You know, some people say, oh, people need to be more trusting. How about we all get more trustworthy? So that was a big deal. Those are huge honors. That Greystar is the impetus for those is also an honor.
Well, let's talk about your approach to security, because I know there's been a lot happening in the multifamily space. as residents encounter these, there's concern, there's questions about hackability. There's also a lot of interest in this space. So I know one of your competitors recently just raised $32 million, which is a lot.
It's a lot of cash.
Yeah. So I look at things like that and I'm like, hey, what's the right approach for building a platform that allows people outside of your apartment unit to kind of see what's happening in there, maybe access it? I mean, all of that's that can be scary for people.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I think this goes back to that trust factor. Build something that's trustworthy and you will earn trust. Don't expect trust, just carte blanche. And I think that we believe that the right way to do this is to negate resident Wi-Fi and resident connectivity as a necessity. So we network an entire building, and people are used to IT network, so they panic when I say that, and they're like, oh, the expense, the cost. It's cheaper than an in-hub unit, and it's certainly more secure. So 300 hubs, do the math. Even a loft leader is going to be expensive. 30 hubs, not as expensive, not in the unit, not connected to resident power or Wi-Fi. We maintain control of that with the property owner or manager. And that differentiator alone is probably the largest as to how we install. And it makes all the difference in the world. We see the ones and zeros, and it also allows us to completely automate our enrollments of our residents so that they don't have to do anything and we're not reliant on them and they don't have to worry about tech. The technology should be nearly invisible. It should be something that works without the resident having to think about it or be bothered or concerned with it. And if they want to opt out, they should absolutely be able to do that. It's funny, you've been doing this a little while too, and it used to be home automation, not smart home. And I think that we've lost some of the automation and, some things got broken here and there, as we both have seen. But the automated part of what we do is the smart. And if it's not automated, it's simply not smart. You can have a lot of smart technology in a building that makes the building just a little bit dumber for all intents and purposes when you're practically trying to use it.
True. I have made many things in my life dumber. Let's go into the trust. I'd like for you to explain how you guys handle that and also help people who are perhaps moving into these spaces to know what to ask if they really want to preserve their privacy.
Yeah, absolutely. So trust is important. It's not enough for me to say that we're trustworthy, not in this day and age, not when there are so many reliable third-party groups who are willing to tell you that I'm trustworthy so that I don't have to. I could tell you that I'm anything. And, I've been in this industry long enough. Most people would say, good job, Felicity, thanks. But what I prefer is to provide you the documentation around our SOC 2 compliance, our third-party penetration testing, our results from behind the firewall, attempting to get into our system, the methodologies by which we cordon off pieces of our tech so that, God forbid, we are hacked, we don't share more information than is absolutely necessary. It's like pennies in a vault. You'd have to work really hard for pennies because that's the information that's available at each point. And I think that it's not enough for me to tell you. You have to see from a third party that this is legitimate and this is real. And that's the only way to compare apples to apples in a space so fraught with questions and complexities. So for residents in particular, I think the questions have to be, did you, property owner or manager, do your homework? How do I know this is secure? How do I know that my data is private? And frankly, is it private? What can you see about me? And how can you see it? And these are fairly basic questions. But in the brave new world of smart apartments, that's a lot to put on a resident. Hopefully, and I know our property owners and managers are very proactive in defining our policies for residents when they come in so that the residents don't have to ask. And that's really the push method. It's better than the pull method here. And I'm seeing a lot of it, which inspires me.
Oh, that's good. So with this idea of what can you see, I'd love to know, when I move into a building, what can Greystar see about my individual unit?
Yeah, that's a great question. This goes back to the automation part of smart, right? When you add a resident to a rent roll, which is the software that says this person has a lease on the property, that unit becomes blind to everyone. including us at Stratus, unless we are specifically requested to do an audit by legal documentation, a subpoena, which happens. We're on 325,000 apartments now in the U.S. alone, and you can imagine the security that this creates, but also the auditability. So if it's tied to a cell phone, we know who did what when. That's some powerful information for not just property owners and managers in the event of an incident, but also law enforcement. So our units go blank. They go dark for the purpose of anybody but that resident. And all of the information that is recorded for that auditability is anonymized and privatized, but for that incident where we have to pull an audit. Now, some properties are asking residents to opt into programs, and they're incentivizing residents to save energy with a demand response program. In that situation, there's information going to the utility, but it's all opt-in. We also have opt-out. So if you don't want to engage in any of the smarts that we provide, you don't have to. Everything we do also works manually. You can make a smart apartment really dumb by just turning it off.
Yes, or by installing a terrible system.
That's just true.
So you guys have installed in basically 1 out of 5 new developments in the United States. You mentioned the 325,000 units. Given all of that information, what is your next step?
Yeah, so exciting times. We are looking for the opportunity all of the time to increase sustainability around our original mission. That was to reduce the carbon footprint globally, ubiquitously, of all of these commercial residential buildings around the world. So we just received a grant from the National Renewable Energy Labs, and this is an opportunity for us to actually put that data, again, anonymized and privatized, into systems that will teach us digital systems that will teach us how to better save energy in these buildings. So that when we go onto a site, we're not trying things. We're not experimenting. We'll know now via digital twins exactly how to save the most energy and provide the biggest return on investment and the fastest return on investment for that owner operator, because that's who's investing in this tech in the first place. I love residents and we care deeply about their comfort, but our client is an owner or developer who's paying for this technology to go in. We need to provide them that return. And I would love to further incentivize sustainability and get real about the fact that the reduction of energy usage is a reduction of spend, and it's meaningful and we can have impact. So that's the most exciting thing. It's 6 years. We're 6 years old, 6th anniversary. That's the most exciting thing that we can do.
As you start to understand how buildings are behaving, that sort of thing, that's an area that a lot of companies are getting into. I've profiled companies like Vertigree. They help companies understand their energy use in manufacturing. There's also Johnson Controls and Siemens. They're focused heavily in this space. And so how do you plan to, compete? Work with them? Is it enough of a market to just know about all the many multifamily units? I mean, that's a pretty big business right there.
It's a huge business. And the commercial residential space, which is differentiated from commercial or residential because they're multifamily, multi-dwelling, is a tremendous space. 20 million apartments in the U.S. will need to be retrofit with these technologies. We're actively retrofitting as well. New development has kind of taken front seat because it's such a massive push in the United States. But those companies that you named are opportunities for us to better our platform. I like to say that Stratus is a racetrack, and all of those individual devices or those individually focused softwares are ponies. And you can pick 3, 6, 9 ponies to run on a racetrack. You don't run one pony. And that's an opportunity for each building to have a winner, to pick a winner. Maybe it's thermostats. Maybe you want to test 3 or 4 different thermostats on 3 or 4 different buildings. We're doing a pilot right now with PSE&G, determining whether the single-family thermostats that we're using today are as effective as we state they are, and more importantly, which ones perform better specifically in multifamily. Tremendous opportunity to run ponies, to run all of these technologies on the racetrack that is Stratus. we very much appreciate partnership with device manufacturers, but also software partners. So we're pretty open. A literal direct competitor doesn't make a lot of sense for us. But outside of that, Johnson is a tremendous company for data analytics. Why would I reinvent all those algorithms? Now, if I can come up with some better ones or iterate, that makes sense. But why would I reinvent wheels that exist today if I can just put them on the vehicle I'm already driving?
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm kind of now envisioning this fun racetrack of conservation efforts. Yay!
Yeah, I'm bullish on sustainability. I think that multifamily has not had the opportunity to engage technologies around sustainability, and we're seeing a pretty significant shift. I feel like the access issue is solved. There is one mobile credential to literally take you from sidewalk to sofa now. That's in these buildings. It's installed. It's working. The access challenge is solved. So the focus is turning to sustainability. And I think that's tremendous. And I think that multifamily for the first time can actually leapfrog what's available to hospitality and engage these people. These are their homes. They're not guests. They're not overnighters. So they have an incentive to be cognizant of sustainability initiatives. And the research around sustainability proves out that residents will pay more to live in greener buildings and that they will opt in to programs around sustainability. So I'm hugely bullish on this. I think millennials get a bad rap. I think they're going to change our world and are right now because they're prioritizing these things. So I'm bullish on tech, but I'm as bullish on these next gens coming up.
Let's hear it for the youths. The youths!
I love the youth!
Awesome. All right. Felicity, thank you so much for coming on the show this week.
Stacey, it's always a pleasure.
That's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, if you'd like more IoT news, sign up for my newsletter at stacyoniot.com. We'll see you next week.